Lovely. All right. I'm a big fan. Okay. Sheesh. And Apes Together Strong already getting it going here as game number 1 in Spires gets rolling.
Ooh, Apes Together Strong running a really weird composition. They're running that Brewmaster Monk, and they're running a Destro Warlock.
Yeah, the Destro Lock coming in here for Apes Together Strong. After seeing Shella use it in the Halls of Atonement, that dungeon, there's a lot of really big AoE. Here we're going to see a lot more of those small to medium-sized pulls. But so far on this pull, it is holding its own. The new meta being defined here right in front of our eyes. Also, we're seeing our third unique tank spec of the tournament in the Brewmaster Monk out of the Apes here as well. This is actually a great dungeon for Brewmaster. There's a lot of nice stuff that you can do on the spec, and it's providing quite a nice physical damage buff for their Hunter as well.
Yeah, it's a non-standard comp is how I think I would describe it, but at the same time, they do have a lot. It's a lot of better utility that allows you to do the dungeon in a different way, but you lose a lot of speed in the process. For Sheesh, you do see Thanner there on that Holy Paladin popping off. His Ashen Hollow is down. He's saying, I'm going to pop a bubble here and just continue DPSing. I may even stand in this puddle. Don't look at me. I'm standing in the Sanguine. And now the boss being pulled with that whole entire trash pack and Arcoleth.
Oh,
dangerous.
And the Touch of Death goes out to attempt to finish off this Castigator while it's in that Sanguine puddle, but not quite low enough to be one-shot by it. And that thing is going to take another couple of extra seconds as they now have to dodge these barrages during the air phase of the boss while they finish off this Goliath. And they just, Thanor's going to pick up his anima power here.
Don't mind if I do.
Yeah, just collecting that in the middle of the boss fight. Meanwhile, Apes Together Strong on a much more methodical path through the dungeon. They are just fighting the Incinerator by itself instead of with the next pack and the next boss all at the same time.
Yeah, so Apes Together Strong is doing something that's really standard for how you just would do this dungeon in a live or normal route, whereas Sheesh is cranking it up to 11 and making sure that every mob gets pulled. They did have some Sanguine healing. I feel like their Sanguine management there had a lot that they could have improved on, but it's like we were talking about before the match started, just lack of...
Oh, dude, that almost landed in the Sanguine puddle.
That right there is the issue.
They're going to be okay, though. Yeah, it is not going to full heal the boss, that Sanguine puddle. That would have been a tragedy if it were to happen, as the Apes are getting started with their boss pull. They are also pulling all of the trash onto the boss, just no tormented mob as well.
Yeah, they probably have access to Ring of Peace, but they also have access to something like a Binding Shot if they really want it. Binding Shot isn't the greatest utility on Sanguine, but it can separate some of the mobs, while things like the Goliath and the boss won't be able to be affected by it. Apes Together Strong, I think they had a more clean and consistent pulling of the first boss here.
Yeah, I mean, part of that might be that you weren't having to deal with the Incinerator in the middle of the pull as well.
That's true.
Mob requires interrupts and drops void zones and does a bunch of damage to the whole group as well. But I agree with you. The execution of this fight has looked pretty great from them. We haven't seen Touch of Death being sunk into mobs that weren't about to die. This Goliath is going to die in a little bit of an awkward position if they aren't careful with it. Ideally, you want it to die in the middle of the room, and that's... Oh, wow, look at this. They're going to have this Goliath die, right in the middle of the room, which is great, because the boss never, the bird, the Ether Worm, never lands in the middle of the room, right? It always goes to an edge of the room, and so that is the one that you...
Oh, tank death! This is so bad, Dratnos. They're trying to get a Soulstone out.
Yeah, so Soulstone is going to be deployed. They have to taunt the boss. It looks like it's going to be Cauterize and a pod that is going to be the cost of this for them, but otherwise they are able to recover this one.
Whew, we're saved. Another advantage of this comp, a lot faster of a battle res than an engineering res.
Yep, that is
I don't know
huge.
I don't know if their mage is happy to lose pod and Cauterize at the same time, but it's better than wiping.
Yeah, we take these.
Do we?
All right, so I have some data from production here. Sanguine has so far done over 1 million healing on the side of Apes Together Strong, actually. 1 million of that was on a Castigator, I think, right near the start of the dungeon. So actually, it is an affix that is proving to be a big challenge for both teams here. And like you were saying, I mean, that's just this dungeon, right? You have Castigators who at least you can move with some effects, and you have Goliaths, which you can't. And if any of those find their way into a Sanguine puddle, it is a disaster.
Apes Together Strong, his healer has died, but it looks like they're going to be able to kill off this boss. And once this boss does die, they do unlock a checkpoint where they can release. So it shouldn't be too bad. Although, it's not preferred to have your healer costing you 5 seconds of time.
Oh, and look at the differential in the health between these Goliaths here for Sheesh. You can see one of them, the full-on Sanguine healing.
Get out of there!
Out. It is refusing to move.
Get out! Please! The Praetor starting at 10% health, healing all the way back up to 80. That was really sad for Sheesh.
Pain.
That is definitely a pain moment. Now they have the Goliath casting, and 2 Praetors still active, dashing around. And you never know what's going to happen with this next dash from this Praetor Dreadnoughts.
They've done it.
We're fine.
They have achieved victory on this day, and they will be advancing through the rest of the dungeon. They do have a Kyrian gamer and Andy, their tank, which means they get access to those Kyrian spears. So we can look for that to be used to facilitate a big pull potentially here. Although that can be sketchy with Sanguine active. You know, everything is stunned, and if you get a Sanguine puddle under them, you can't even easily move them out there.
A lot of the times, or at least last season, teams had to wait for specific patrol timing to be able to get this pull dealt with. Yep, and so they have to wait for that great patrol timing again. They're getting everything grouped up. I suspect that they're going to drop their spear here in just a second. Ooh, Ashen Hollow has gone down. Those Ether Divers notably have so much little HP compared to the Goliath, but you saw the Sigil of Chains pulling all of the trash off of that Goliath.
Oh, beautiful.
This is fine.
Beautiful Ring of Peace there by Nezro. And this is a phenomenally executed pack. They're going to finish off that Dark Praetor before it can find its way into a puddle. And you can see just that overflowing font of Sanguine there, where the 5 Ether Worms all died right on top of each other. Beautifully managed by Sheesh. That is a pull that I suspect they have practiced many times. And you know what they're going to say to those next 2 mobs? I don't care about you. Goodbye. Yes, we aren't going to pull you. We're jumping right over the edge and just getting ferried back up here. This is a big adaptation as well. It means you just don't have to fight those 2 slow mobs, and you get to go right into the rest of the dungeon.
It's funny because if they are walking back towards the ledge, then you're able to just walk around them without having to burn any invisibility potions or anything. But if they're walking towards like back towards the beginning where you came from, then I don't know if you're able to just generally walk around them because the Praetor is further over to the side.
Yeah, it is an interesting dynamic here as they do get into Ventanax. You can see hanging out just over in the background is Oros Coldheart. They are not going to bother with Oros Coldheart. Oros Coldheart is not something that they care about. They aren't going to bother with that big trash pull either. So they are at 63% count. And I suspect they are planning to get the most of the rest of that just from the area before the third boss.
Yeah, that's what we've seen in the past, is where there are some dangerous mobs that you probably don't pull on live. They're called Hellions, and they do a pulsing AoE damage. And a lot of the time, we've seen very different strategies for those mobs across last season, whether it be committing a spear to it, whether it be just blowing a bloodlust on it, having all of your offensive CDs. I'm wondering what Sheesh has decided is the most important thing, but that Hellion pull is something that can wipe groups, and it has historically wiped very many groups just with how much damage can go out. If any kicks are missed on the Castigators, they're not called Castigators in that part of the dungeon, but they're still Castigators. If any casts end up going off, then it will also cause a wipe for Sheesh.
Yeah, those sorts of things can be incredibly damaging. You know just how deadly those Hellions are is on live. You pull like one by itself, right? You pull that one Hellion right at the front of the stairs by itself, and like that is a scary moment. So here, if they're planning to pull, Hellion plus some more, that just goes to highlight how deadly it is. And Hellions are another type of mob that just do not respect knock effects and crowd control and stuff. So if one of those lands in a Sanguine puddle as well, I mean, it's just tragedy all the way down.
Apes Together Strong looks like they're recovering pretty well. They did end up using their spear on one of their pulls, and they're making their way through the dungeon. But as it currently stands, they look like they're a little bit over one boss behind where Sheesh is currently.
Yeah, so it's not an insurmountable gap. You know, we've seen teams lose a tremendous amount of time to the 3 mini bosses at the end of the dungeon. So in Spires in particular, it is never over until that timer stops. But Sheesh are very likely to reach that point with, say, a wipe or two to give at this pace.
Yeah. Sheesh now tabbing out, changing their playlist,
Yeah.
scrolling through Twitter, making a tweet that they're currently on the Angel and Spires of Ascension. Now they have landed and they're making their way towards the back half of the dungeon.
Looks like they are going to skip around here. They are not interested in that first Hellion, but they will be, and they're not interested in Sagadon there either, or in Varuth there either. So they're not going to pull the Executioner. That means they're going to be dealing with the last boss with a healing reduction. Here's Sagadon. Let's see what they're going to deal with in this area. And yes,
where's Andy going?
He's going off on an adventure towards a Hellion pack over there. And are they going to be bringing this back onto Sagadon, perhaps? Oh, Sagadon's getting Mind Soothed. No, they're not. So Sagadon is also getting skipped, as everything around Sagadon is getting pulled and getting pulled through here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so they pulled everything perfectly through. Ashen Hollow goes down. This pull is absolutely massive. You did see a leg sweep come out, and right as that leg sweep expires, they drop that Kyrian Spear to keep all of the mobs stunned for another 10 seconds. But it's Sanguine. Ring of Peace comes out to try to separate the mobs away. And the Hellions are just standing in that Sanguine Dratnos, healing back up for a second. They both leap out in unison away from it, pulsing AoE on the rest of the party. Ooh, that was a really scary pull by Sheesh, but they were able to get it done. That was a great Ring of Peace.
Yeah, they do have an extra Justicar over there that they are going to pull, presumably into some more small mobs, if I had to guess. Yeah, it does look like... maybe they're just going to fight this thing by itself for a little bit? Wonder what the logic is behind this one. Maybe just a cooldown recovery moment here. Oh, no, yeah, they are going to pull the Usurpers as well. Dropping that Ring of Frost as well, letting them group everything nice and safely.
Oh,
the big advantage of the Mage.
It's because of Sanguine, because they can't pull the Usurpers and the Justicar in and deal with it without the Sanguine. And okay, so yeah, look at that leg sweep coming in at the last possible moment. They dropped that Ring of Peace too.
Beautiful.
They had neither of those things available, is what I would have to guess it is. So
well,
now,
and they wanted it to be... so it's sort of a similar theory to Bullstring, right? You want everything to die around the same time, so you just fight the high health mob by itself for a little while. And that's exactly what they did there. Beautifully executed. They are now at 88%, which is the magic number. At 88%, you don't need any more trash, and you can just go up and get your last 3 hits of 4% from the mini-bosses. So they don't need the other side, anything there at all. They have 1 Anima Power, and they will be fighting Devos with 3 auras. But before that, they have to get through Orpheron and those 3 mini-bosses, and that is no easy feat.
Yeah, which is harder, 3 angels at once or doing Devos with the 50% heal reduction aura? Because that's the one that they didn't fight. They fought Incinerator, which is the dot, but Varuth is the one that has the 50% healing reduction.
Yeah, so the nice thing about Devos is that she actually gets far enough away from the party during the intermission that you don't have the auras affecting you while you are dealing with the orb collection. And that is a pretty healing intensive moment as well. But you can dump a mana pool, a huge amount of your mana pool, while the aura actually isn't active and still get full effectiveness from it. So if that is well managed, I think they'll be able to make it happen. And I would bet that even on a 20 Tyrannical, it's still going to be those 3 mini-bosses that are the biggest danger, especially because we know they don't have a Kyrian Spear, right? They speared that Hellion pull and the Ether Worm pull earlier, which means there are no spears left. They are going to be dealing with them au natural, a la carte, al dente.
That is not what al dente means.
Pretty sure it's accurate in this case.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. At the same time, the debuffs on Devos are really, really scary. So there's a lot that's going to be going on. This is going to be one of the first dungeons. Is this the first dungeon that we've seen be done with 3 tormented debuffs?
No, we saw it in Plaguefall out of Perplexed as well. So that was an impressive feat there. That was a 19 Fortified setting, though, not a 20 Tyrannical. So this is a ratcheting up of the difficulty on it as well. I think we also maybe saw it in the halls as well.
In the halls, that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I think we did.
Chamberlain is such a weird fight where you can you can make it work if you really need to. You can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, usually the effect we're talking about adding is the healing reduction aura.
Yes.
Which is not, it's not the end of the world as long as you kill bosses quickly and avoid the avoidable damage.
Look at Apes the Other Strong.
Oh, what are they up to here?
Wiping. That's what they're up to.
Okay, I see. Yeah, look at the Sanguine as well. That is going to prevent these mobs from
Wait,
being
they may live.
particularly
Hold on.
killable.
Oh man, everything
They're in
is
so much
so
trouble
low. They're in so much trouble, but everything is so low right now. It would be just awful if they had a wipe. Oh, their healer's dropping to 5% health. Oh, he's dead again.
And they don't have any battle reses left at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to try and keep it going here for a little while longer, but you can see just all of these damaging effects, and it's going to be a pod tender out of Hogs, their Warlock, the final player in combat. That is going to cause the mobs to reset here. They're going to have to give this pull another shot, but here we go over on Sheesh's side. The Ashen Hallow, the Bloodlust, every cooldown in the game, and all 3 Angels are being pulled simultaneously here. These need to die within about 5 seconds of each other, or else any that are still left alive will fully heal and gain the abilities of whichever mobs are dead.
Thanner bubbling, standing in the frontal, standing in the puddle from the spear.
That's what Bubbles for.
Now he has to dodge again. You do see that Karma is coming out. This is a really dangerous pull with all of those Angels alive, but that was perfect from Sheesh. Just absolute pristine execution, getting all of those Angels killed off within 5 seconds of one another. They ended up... It's so much different from how they would end up pulling this for the Great Push. So them having to retool and refine their strategies on a different level to pull all 3 of those Angels at once just shows how much time and dedication they have put in this dungeon.
Yeah, this is putting the rest of the tournament field on notice, especially if they can kill Devos here with these 3 tormented auras affecting it as well. I mean, this is going to be a very fast Spires plus 20, right? A sub 20-minute run potentially here that we are watching unfold. I mean, this is definitely something that if you're trying to get one of the spots to qualify out of this group, it looks like you're going to have to go through Sheesh to do it, and it looks like that is not going to be easy at all.
Yeah, everybody's dropping so low just every single time that AoE goes off. In addition to that, they are getting those debuffs. And it's like we were talking about, the 50% healing reduction. Just look at how low the party is. But once they do get Devos pushed to 70% or 80% HP, she will jump into the middle of the room. And then once she leaves the platform area, she's no longer in range. She's no longer targetable. And the debuffs just expire on all the players, as you see on their frames right there, allowing Thanner to get everybody topped up quickly.
Yeah, could you imagine having to go and collect your orbs while slowed by
No.
50%? That would not be an ideal moment, and that might actually be something that would cause them to rethink doing this strategy.
Ooh.
But because of that is not active, they actually get to top everybody up coming into this phase as well. And they actually have a bunch of extra healing, right? Everybody has off healing or self healing effects in the rest of the group also, so it really does help compete with this aura that is really... I mean, it really is representing a lot of extra healing that needs to be done.
It helps, too, that they do have a Mass Dispel. That's one of the bigger things, is that Splat, he ended up MDing off all of those... I don't know what the name of the debuff is. Yeah, the Seed of Corruption.
There's actually a little aura around the boss as well, because Nezro diffused magicked it back on the boss as well. So they have a lot of tools for dealing with it.
Ooh, block. Right there, you saw Wildy just block his off of himself there. So they have to aggressively get these debuffs off of them, otherwise they're going to be in a heap of trouble. They push Devos at 30% here, and after Devos gets pushed at 30%, they are pretty much home free. But Andy is criminally low on HP.
Yeah, they will be able to top Andy as soon as they can get this push done, right? As soon as that healing reduction aura diffuses off of them, right? Once they get to that intermission, they should be able to recover. But Thanner is running dangerously low on mana. He's going to have enough to top everybody during this intermission, and that's going to be about it. And they are going to have to nuke the rest of the boss HP without really all that much resources left.
But the Javelin does a considerable amount of damage to the boss. So it's not like they have... They don't have a large phase. That second phase is by far the longest HP burn that you're going to have, where teams on live will typically lust in that phase if they do have a lust on Devos. So yeah, look at it, 16% HP. It's going to basically die once all of their CDs are over. You see Wildy popping his combustion, Splat ends up going, pressing Void Eruption, gets in to Void Form there. You have the Ashen Hollow coming out. This boss is just dropping rapidly. And Sheesh, you mentioned that they may be under 20 minutes. They're right above that. And that was a really, really solid run by them.
It as Spires of Ascension gets underway.
Ooh, 40 immediately popping that turtle as he's running through. That's I would say that's an interesting time to pop a turtle on a class that is not known for being having great survivability.
Yeah, you do what you got to do to get through as well. It looks like they are. So it is a slight difference in compositions between the two teams, and Goose Club actually just running back the same comp they did in that last place with, as Zara mentioned, that Fire Mage. Meanwhile, Obey Alliance have made a bit more of a swap here, and they have that Frost Mage in as well. This, I think, is a great dungeon for the Frost Mage in particular, and these affixes even further enhance the Frost Mage's value because you're just getting these Blizzard Ticks and Frozen Orb hits on Spiteful during the end of a pull that can then funnel even more damage into the surviving members of that pull.
Look at this. So the Goose Club, even while their Fire Mage is doing more of effective damage than that of Obey Alliance, just the difference in composition allowed them to get the first pull dealt with a little bit cleaner. Of course, there is Vikland on that Shadow Priest versus 40 on that Hunter. That is a little bit different, but...
So Goose Club here have actually saved their Ashen Hallow and their wings as well. You can see it. There was actually a huge difference in Paladin damage on that first pull. So maybe Goose Club are about to do something crazy here. Let's see what they are up to. Looks like they are not going to be pulling Incinerator Arcolith just yet. Maybe it's going to come with them, though. Yeah, you can see the MOR popped, and I didn't quite see if a glaive went out to that tormented mob. But
look at the debuff.
There they go. Every single mob from that they were legally allowed to pull in this area has come into this pull. Incinerator, the entire trash pull, and the boss itself all coming into this big pull for the Goose Club. If they can make this work, this will be a huge time save as compared to Obey Alliance's slower strategy, but it is so scary with all of these things going on at once.
Yeah, one of the criticisms that we had last weekend with some of our teams was, are they going too big on this pull into the first boss? However, that was a Spires of Ascension that had Sanguine as an active affix, and Goose Club has one of those Rebellious Fist casts goes off. Tobo dies to that cast, and it's like we were talking about. Is this just too big? Is it too dangerous to be able to deal with? Now they're missing one of their interrupts on some of these kicks. Oh, the Inferno just gets stopped right before because Arcolith goes down. Now Tobo gets battle res with that engineering res. Ooh, they got punished super heavily. We're on the other side. Obey Alliance here with the more safe strategy of pulling Incinerator by itself have caught up and even passed Goose Club in terms of boss damage. Tobo dies again.
Oh no! They don't have a battle res here, so they're just going to have to deal with the rest of this boss fight with a player down and nearly another as well. A lot of damage coming out onto Goose Club's tank there. Obey Alliance nearly done with all of their trash as well. They do have a Goliath left, but look at this. They're not hitting that Goliath at all while it's recharging Anima, and that is 100% the correct way to deal with that ability. If you were watching Goose Club, they were actually putting some damage into those Goliaths while they were casting the recharged Anima. That ability is actually pretty inefficient to damage into, though. It puts a big shield on the Goliath, but that shield just goes away when the cast finishes, or if you DPS all the way through it. So you may as well just let all the damage be done by the cast finishing, and not actually put any damage into it, which Obey Alliance have done, and that gained them a little bit of efficiency. Mostly, though, it is going to be the death difference between the two teams here, making that boss fight so much faster for Obey Alliance. And despite doing this in one extra pull, they are now zooming ahead of where the Goose Club are at. A big bop coming out onto Skylark as well to let him start this pull.
The Windwalker Monk from Obey Alliance Boo ends up getting stunned by that Stealth Claw. That looked really dangerous, but Skylark was able to get that Stealth Claw off of the Windwalker Monk before he ended up getting meleeed by the subsequent attack. That was really scary.
Yeah, that's a case of, I'll soak the stun for you, man. Don't worry.
Don't mind if I do.
I'm helping.
he was He was definitely doing something. I don't know if I would have classified it as helping, but
Look at the management of this pull here. Frost Nova, Binding Shot, Sigil of Misery, all of these pieces of utility being used to carefully manage these mobs, and then it's going to be followed by a Tar Trap into a Ring of Peace. That's the second Tar Trap that's been cast on this pull, and just look at how thought out and coordinated Obey Alliance are with this sort of mob control. Let's see how Goose Club handles a similar situation here. It's going to be a leg sweep for them as these mobs are starting to die, but you can already see that they've sort of separated mobs here, and now they have that Praetor dying in a different spot than the Stealth Claws. Obey Alliance didn't have that happen, and now these Stealth Claws are going to be moving as they're dying as well, so we're going to see this long train of Spiteful Shades kind of spread out all over the place for them. Still well handled, though, I would say, for Goose Club on the whole.
I think that Goose Club is playing like a higher DPS composition, where Obey Alliance is playing a comp that has a lot more control. And it's felt like the control of just the Binding Shot, just all of that Frost Mage slow, ambient CC like that, plus the Ring of Peace on top of that additionally, has seemed like it's been just a little bit more advantageous in how the pulls are being set up over the higher DPS comp that the Goose Club has access to.
Yeah, I think that it's some of that just MDI veterancy that Obey Alliance is bringing as well. The coordinated AoE CCs in a chain that are just done. You know that in practice that was done the exact same way every time once they figured out what they wanted to do. And that just gives them this degree of predictability in the dungeon that is really a difference between MDI keys and live server keys. You know, on the live servers, you will eventually develop that if you're playing with a coordinated group a lot. But there's a lot of stuff that kind of just gets YOLO'd, right? You're kind of using whatever ability seems good based on who has something available as things are going on. But the way that Obey Alliance plays these MDI keys is much more coordinated, much more developed plan that they then stick to every time based off of, you know, looking outside the dungeon at just what their abilities are as they go into this very big pull now.
Ooh.
Presumably they should have a Kyrie. Oh, actually they don't. So they don't actually have the next set of Ether Divers coming into this one. Or do they? Yeah, they actually have all of them, right? That is all of them.
Yes, they do.
Tell.
They're committing to just doing this pull au natural, dropping
No
all
spear,
of their offensive... no spear, which is pretty counterproductive to what we've seen from other teams. But how they had the pack set up where they were focusing down that one hurling mob and then just pulling the remainder of the trash into the Goliath, into those Ether Divers, that allowed them to save that Kyrian Spear. And since they are running multiple Kyrians, they are able to save that Spear for later on in the instance. I wonder where they're going to use the second one, because there is one very common strategy from what we've seen from MDI teams where they're pulling like some Hellions, some Justicars, those kind of mobs after the second boss and using a spear on that. But this makes me wonder where the second one is going to be. And is it potentially going to be with the Triple Angel pull? Because that would be a pretty popular one just as a whole as well. Look at Goose Club. They're doing the very typical, we're going to spear this one pack.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they only have one Kyrian. So they were always going to only be able to spear this one pack.
Right, they couldn't save that spear and have two Kyrians use stuff for later. Yeah, it's a very...
Because you can't carry two.
Right, exactly. You only have... A spear takes up a large amount of space on your back. There's not enough space for a second one back there. Obey Alliance now getting into this trash pull with the squad leader. Important to focus that down. That's one of the strengths of stuff like Frost Mage, is you can just deal a lot of damage to squad leaders because they provide an AoE damage reduction to the mobs near them. So you really need to kill them first before you then get to start doing a lot of AoE damage to all of the other targets.
Yeah. I think that, oh man, it's so weird because a lot of MDI teams basically omit as many squad leaders as possible, even omitting this one. And I think that just the time that it costs to play this squad leader is not, it's not super worth just because of how the mobs end up functioning, where they are putting that damage reduction aura to all of the mobs surrounding them. However, what Obey Alliance is doing here, where they're pulling the remainder of that trash after they get that squad leader killed off, pulling the remainder of that trash with Ventinax, maybe it is a lot more worth in terms of value.
Yeah, this is quite a big pull going on here for Obey Alliance. And like you said, maybe that squad leader was the price you pay. You know, if you just look at it in isolation, fighting that squad leader and CCing mobs seems pretty inefficient. But then you unlock the ability to pull the trash onto the boss, as they're doing here. And with that Frost Mage, that is actually, again, another big single target DPS increase for Ventinax. You basically get to use those 4 other mobs as funnel fuel for both the squad leader and Ventinax. Pretty big value when you factor all that in.
Yeah, Ventinax now eclipsing 50% HP on the first recharge. Everybody's stacked up on the opposite side of those two puddles that are firing out those missiles. This is actually a great strategy for how to do this boss if you're looking for something that's more applicable to live keys, where you're stacking multiple of those puddles on one side of the room and then immediately moving the boss to the far side of the room. Going into this patch, one of the major changes to Ventinax is after the recharge, those puddles do despawn, and it makes the fight just as a whole a lot easier. But I think that how Skylark is having this tank, where there are those two puddles on the far side of the room, and then you move the boss the moment that the second one spawns, and you get all of your melee out of the line of fire, and allow the range to even play just on the outside of the room. This feels like it's a really easy way to just deal with this boss. And it feels like the Goose Club also is catching back up.
Now Obey Alliance all trying to jump and grab the Angel as it's flying by. Have they all done it? Yes, they have. All 5 members of their team. Nobody embarrassed and taking an extra 5 seconds. We approach the final bit of this dungeon with 70% count, so they are going to need to do a Hellion pull in this area before the last boss. Those are sketchy, but that is possibly what the Kyrian Spear is for. I think that's one of the better candidates for the use of that powerful tool. The other option, of course, being those 3 Angel mini-bosses right at the end of the dungeon.
Yeah, they've also only killed Arcoleth so far, so the ticking fire dot is not something that they believe that they can play. I wonder if they're going to kill Varuth here, because he does apply that 50% healing reduction aura.
With Grievous, I think you gotta. I'm not sure, though, but I think you gotta. Yeah, they are.
All right.
Oh, wow.
God.
Double Hellion.
This pull
here
is insane.
Oh,
Double Hellion.
goodness.
They're obviously spearing this. It's on top of Executioner Varuth. This is something that they are committing all of their buttons to. They even dropped an Ashen Hollow. They're not bloodlusting it, but every single offensive CD is going to be used here. The first wave of terror coming out. You do see 40 and the Mage stacked up there just to be able to not be standing inside of melee. Varuth ends up going down. The Hellions are so incredibly low, and the Goliath is sitting here recharging. This is looking like they're going to get this pull done very cleanly, Dratnos.
Such a dangerous pull. 1 Goliath, 2 Hellions, and Executioner Varuth there, but the Spear just did so much work on this pull. The Spear prevented Varuth from doing basically anything. We got the 1 charge and the 1 fear cast, but really didn't end up causing that many problems. And all of that healing reduction aura was mitigated by the fact that none of the mobs were doing anything while they were affected by that spear. So a really clever way to use that resource. And now at 79% count, they have just the need for, I think, the 2 usurper pulls? I'm not
84.
Sure. Yeah,
84 is what they need.
So we'll see if they can get enough just from the 2 usurper pulls. I think they might be able to.
So one massive time save in this dungeon that people don't talk about enough is how are they going to be able to phase this boss? Because it was seen last week that a lot of groups were trying to 2-phase this boss, but it was definitely possible to 1-phase it, talking to some of the groups after the fact. And it was speculated that a lot of time was lost by not committing offensive CDs or potentially even Bloodlust, and instead going for that 2-phase as opposed to going for that 1-phase, because you end up costing yourself well over a minute trying to just deal with this extra phase on a Furion. But Obey Alliance has a lot of things, a lot of tools in their arsenal, and I wonder what they're going to commit here.
Yeah, Icy Veins is available. We should have a Kyrian Resonating Arrow in addition to that.
True Shot.
Xuen, the White Tiger, also will be available for this, so they have...
They're eyeballing some trash.
They have pretty much everything here. Yeah, let's see what they are going to be up to. Yeah, they are going right into trash during... So this is going to be the recharge soon as well. And they are going to be doing big AoE damage into this boss and into this trash during this recharge. Oh, this is so cool. Look at all this damage they're deploying here. This is so efficient. And now they don't need to get that other side of Usurpers or anything as well. This is all the count they're going to need as they go into a Sigil of Silence, into a sweep. And that's basically all they need to handle this trash. And that further enhances their funnel into the boss also, because they have all this trash here while they're doing single target damage. And because of that, the Frost Mage has just annihilated this boss. It's now at 14%, and I think that's low enough that they can just kill the boss and they don't need to worry about waiting for the next recharge phase.
Yeah, I think that them having to deal with 15 or so percent during a normal phase is actually fine relative to the value of pulling that trash with that. I think if they elected to not pull any trash with it at all, they would have been able to just smoke the boss and kill it all the way through. However, they decided that getting a little bit of extra trash count is something that they are looking forward to. And why are they getting so much?
They need 88%, not 84.
Oh,
right?
is it 88?
It's 88 because you get 4 from each of the... Yeah, tricked me.
I
Trixie
have
Tettles.
lied.
Yes.
I've lied, apparently.
Yeah. So now they have enough count. Because,
Okay.
88%, and then you get 4 from each of the 3 mini-bosses. So they are now all set. Meanwhile, though, Goose Club are not far behind either. Goose Club are pulling this Goliath. They're almost done with it, and then they'll be going into Orpheron themselves. So you know what? Even though they're like a boss fight behind, Obey Alliance could easily lose that much time and then some on this Triple Angel. We have seen teams lose far more time than this gap to these 3 mini-bosses if they are not handled well.
They have Lust and a Spear still. So there is a lot that they can commit to this. It's just a balancing act of how much they commit during practice. And the more dangerous thing is somebody going to die during this Triple Angel pull? I think that's always the question. Is somebody accidentally going to get hit with one of those puddles coming out of those spears? Is there just going to be something that happens? Obey Alliance immediately popping their Lust here. Ashen Hollow going down. All offensive CDs must be used. Even the wings, everything is being pumped in. And you see that Windwalker Monk just doing an insane amount of damage. Also being kept up with by the Hunter. All 3 of these Angels have to die in quick succession though, right, Dratnos?
Yeah, if any one of them is still alive a couple of seconds after the first one dies, they will full heal. So they really need to be careful here. Good news, though, the Windwalker Monk brings a huge amount of value for that with Touch of Death. So as long as they have everything fairly low, they can Touch of Death the highest health target. Here we go, the first one about to die now. It's going to be Klotos, and now they need to kill these other 2.
Oh, no.
They've done it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
This is fine.
About 1 second to spare there by Obey Alliance. So well played by them. Now all they have to do to secure a 2-0 victory in this series is defeat Devos. But they do have 2 of those Tormented Auras to deal with and the Grievous Affix active that will make this a little bit more difficult. You can see they're doing a great job here of stacking up and baiting that charge into the shortest possible distance, right?
Yes.
Baiting it right into the tip of the triangle where Kyresti is floating. You know, that will give you the smallest possible charge distance and stay with the highest uptime on the boss. Very valuable when you do have that slow aura.
Okay.
Because now you can see what happens when you don't do that, right? And everybody's kind of waddling towards the boss and losing globals.
Yeah, so 40 hates his healer, he hates his tank, and he hates his Windwalker Monk. It's just as simple as that. Whenever you bait the boss away, you're just basically proclaiming to the world that you just do not like your melee at all. Which, I mean, I guess is a fair point. It really depends on how you feel about it. And 40 doing it again, baiting the boss in the wrong direction, proclaiming once more that he just does not like his melee or his tank or healer.
One merciful part about this fight as well is that you do lose the Tormented Auras during this intermission. So even though, like, the slow would be really brutal during this, but the boss is far enough away that you actually aren't affected by that aura. And so they are able to pretty quickly deal with this intermission. And now they are in the longest phase here, the second phase of the boss fight without as many cooldowns. They do have a lot of their 2 minutes, though. True Shot, Juen, Storm Earth and Fire Charge, and a Frozen Orb, all going to be lobbed into this boss here that should actually push it down below that 30% threshold fairly quickly.
Yeah, not bad. Devos dropping incredibly low like you're talking about. Did you know that you can apply Corgi goggles to Carestia and turn her into not obnoxious angel.jpg?
Yeah, one of the many little things you could do to make your eyes a little bit more effective in this dungeon. The use of the Corgi goggle and the Inky Black Potion. Very valuable, actually, for visual clarity in this place.
So, for the record, we've been lobbying for Inky Black Potion weekend in Spires of Ascension, so tweet at the WoW Esports Twitter that you want Inky Black Potion weekend in Spires of Ascension, please, so you can help our cause just a little bit more.
I think what we should do is just whenever a team's local time is nighttime, we should see the Inky Black Potion on their run, and that will really help enhance the kind of international part of our tournament, right? Where we got one team, you know, it's morning over there. Obey Alliance, of course, Oceanic, so who knows what time it is over there.
Night.
Yeah, it's already night. Okay, so you Inky Black Potion, you know, for thematics. that's my proposal. But it has yet to take off. Unlike Obey Alliance's time in Spires of Ascension, 1851. Blazing fast run in this dungeon. Oh my goodness.
As well, especially in the second platform with the first boss. Some teams decided to just pull everything on top of the first boss, and some decided to to split it up. But I do think that would be really risky with those affix combinations because Fortified and Raging, that combo, is incredibly difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to deal with. It's also it's even more difficult to deal with if the comp you're running is not at all a meta comp whatsoever. Across the board, take a look at Outcast's comp. They just have, you know, maybe that's what the name of the team is for. They take all the Outcast specs and they put them all together. It's kind of cool to see. I mean, I think this is our first time seeing Bear Druid, first time seeing Mistweaver.
Yeah.
Is it our first time seeing Havoc as well? 3 new specs?
We've seen Havoc before,
Have we seen Havoc?
but
Okay.
just once, yeah.
Oh, that doesn't count.
And then it's all we also see the Shadow Priest. I mean, Shadow Priest we've seen before, right? But I think he's playing. That's the human racial, right? Yeah, he's playing human. Interesting. Huh.
I wonder what the choice for human is there. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Well, they're still dealing with that first section of trash, whereas Echo has already moved on to Incinerator Arcalath plus the trash pack in front of the first boss. Not going for the bigger pull that we've seen in previous weeks, where teams will pull all of this trash and the Incinerator on top of the boss, but they've saved their lust as well, so I wonder if once Incinerator goes down, they're going to go ahead and pull the rest of the trash into the boss. They might not want to purely because of the affix combination. Like Fortified Raging alone is enough to not really want to pull through the trash on top of the boss, especially just to keep your tank alive, but then also having to worry about explosives. That's something that's pretty nasty as well. And yeah, once most of the trash is dead, only that Goliath is left, they're going to go ahead and pull that in. And yep, they're going to get a nice little amount of cleave damage for their Hunter here, just to be able to take advantage of trick shots here because of those 3 targets.
Yeah, and then, I mean, they also have the Enrage Dispel. They have 2. They have the Hunter Dispel on the shorter cooldown, and then they also have the Dispel from the Rogue. Well, if you look at Outcast, they do have that Guardian Druid, who can also get rid of that Raging effect. Unfortunately, they had a cast go through here on their side, as they popped their Bloodlust for this pull, actually. So they committed their lust for this trash pull. It is pretty dangerous, right? There's lots of damage on the tank, and he doesn't have his Incarnation up just yet, because he has been using it for that first pull. So yeah, definitely gotta be a bit careful with those casts. Lots of casts that need to be interrupted, right? You have the Goliath that needs to be interrupted, you have the Arcalath that needs to be interrupted, and all of these casters as well with the heal from the champion. But yeah, Echo, they are just blasting through this pull. You see Sally actually topping the damage on this boss pull because he was committing that Ashen Hollow while the rest of the cooldowns from the other players maybe were used for the trash before. Either way, big damage, Sally, a big dam.
Wait, why are they just dropping a feast to heal up with? Man. just tournament roam things. Oh, this is actually kind of interesting. Have we? This is kind of great. I mean, they're pulling both sides together here. The other divers from one side on top of all the stealth claws here. This is kind of disgusting. So I gotta remember, the affixes are really not nice for doing big pulls like this. Once all of these trash mobs drop below that 30% threshold, now is going to have to get way away. Now, they actually have a great comp for keeping the trash away from their tank. They have a Binding Shot to keep things rooted in place for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then after that they have the Ring of Peace as well, so now can actually just not take any damage while these things are all in the raging scenario, and you can keep an eye on that. Yeah, Other Diver's all dead, all they have to worry about is kiting around the stealth claws. Pretty much perfect execution there from Echo.
Yeah, that's really well done. And then we also saw Jinji chose to actually dispel the Enrage off of the Skirmisher instead of a different mob, because the Skirmisher, if not tanked in melee range, he will start hurling spears at random people. And if that mob is enraged on a 1945, then that's probably going to do a lot of damage to somebody and maybe even kill them. So choosing the correct mob as well to dispel that enrage there. And that was really well done. I think we've seen this from Ambition the first time, where they pulled the left side trash on top of the right side trash, and they executed it a bit differently. So I really like the way Echo gathered up all of those mobs. That was really well done. Now they're moving on to that next platform. They are doing the double Goliath pull, plus basically everything else that is on this platform, just being all gathered into this corner. They made sure they line of sighted in the corner to get the Praetors and everything to stack up. And look how well they're executing this. This looks so simple when they do this, but if you don't know exactly where to move, then some of these Praetors, they're just going to be charging all over the place. And you see how much damage that charge just did because it was raging. That almost killed everyone there. But yeah, the way they execute this and the way they stack it all up is so important because it's going to save you so much time. Because otherwise you're going to have those Praetors charge around, and then you have to single target focus them down once you're the rest of the trash group died.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious to see if they're going to continue to go for these massive pulls here. I got to remember, yeah, the affixes are pretty difficult to deal with, but if you have the CC and the kiting maneuverability of the tank to not have to worry about, you know, getting meleeed down on the raging affix, you can actually pull pretty big, and we've seen them do that a couple times here, and you can see they're actually waiting for patrol timings here. Frag went up ahead to get a distract on the trash, and yeah, they're going for all of this triple trash pull. They're going to be using that Kyrian Spear, and the burst AoE is going to be incredibly important here. The only person in the group that really has cooldowns right now is going to be Clix. All Genji has right now is the Resonating Arrow, which is a little bit of burst, but it's all going to come down to the Death GG procs. Can Clix kill this trash before they actually have to worry about their tank kiting around? It looks like it's going to be pretty easy for him.
Yeah, another really well-executed pull. That Skirmisher is a bit high HP because it was outside of the pack. We did see Clix use that Ring of Peace to get the Skirmisher in at the very end, at the very start though, so did manage to get it down with the Goliath. So no time lost there because the Goliath is the one with the highest HP anyway. So really well done. Looks like they're skipping this this pack. It makes sense that it's a squad leader pack. Don't want to deal with those. And now I actually want to see if Echo can also skip this squad leader pack too, because that's what we saw Ambition do. Ambition was the first team that pulled after the first boss. They pulled left and right side, and it allowed them to skip this pack that Echo is just coming up to, which is a really annoying pack to deal with because it has the squad leader in there.
Yeah, looks like they're gearing up for a Shroud. Yeah, there we go. We're going to Shroud past this trash pack, get a sap on the other diver just to make sure you don't get any proxy aggro, even if you're in this Shroud, and no issues there whatsoever. Going for the same strat as Ambition here. They're going to have to do probably the same big pulls that Ambition did before the third boss in Orpharon, but yeah, so far so good for Echo here. Pretty much going as expected here. These guys are, again, just leaving up where they left off last season. No problems whatsoever for them.
Yeah, they're also committing that Ashen for the boss here because they don't necessarily want to commit too many other cooldowns. We also see Fragnance use his cooldown for this boss. So basically just a single target cooldowns being committed, while the Windwalker and Hunter are saving the cooldowns for the AoE pulls that are going to be happening afterwards. And Outcast, on the other hand, they're pretty clean. They had this one death on the board, so it's not too bad. All of their kills, all of their pulls were actually pretty clean, which is a good thing to see. Of course, there's still a little bit of a difference in time, in speed, and efficiency of their pulls, but that is to be expected, of course, since they are that 23rd seed coming in here, competing for the first time, having to play against Echo. Obviously, that is a hard task, but them executing their pulls properly and not having big mistakes or any sort of huge deaths or wipes is really good on them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to see which pull routing they're going to go for here. We saw a couple of different interesting routes from different teams last week. What is Genji doing right now on cam? He's like explaining something to his team. He was really like animated there, moving his hands around. I want to know what that conversation they were having was there, because be interested to see what those guys are talking about. I mean, maybe how cool would it be actually if we get like VODs later on from the team POV with their comms? I'd love to see that, because I'm really interested to see how teams work together.
Yeah, I wonder as well. At first I was thinking that maybe they're not even speaking that much because a lot of the strategies are really rehearsed, right? They know exactly what they're supposed to do, but obviously things can happen, and maybe you still call out what are you gonna do next, so people don't forget, you know, just like you would do in a raid as well. So I wonder if that's what they do, and if they call out kicks, or if they just know it by heart and they barely have to make any calls. That would definitely be super interesting. Now we see Echo actually gear up for probably a really big pull or a skip. Looks like it's a pull. All right, so now just gather all of those Goliath and Wardens as well. Looks like the Helion. Oh yeah, the Helion is pulled in too, but the Helion is not in. There we go. Now the Helion charged into that spear as well. This is a really difficult pull because if any of those mobs are not in the spear, or if you don't have enough damage to kill them fast enough, now all of them are in raging range, and they're gonna be doing a huge amount of damage if not interrupted. If any of those dark clashes go through, and if the heals go off, the Helion taking for a huge amount of damage, but again, it looked so easy when they do it, right? Like they do this pull and execute it perfectly and just dies in seconds. But this was actually incredibly difficult to do, and they did it perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason these are even possible pulls in the first place is because we're on that 19 dungeon level, right? Like, if you had these affixes and we decided to just like throw this dungeon in the 22 bracket, they would almost certainly have to cut down on some of the pulls, because these pulls on Fortified Raging are just so pass-fail that if you don't have the burst damage to just burst trash mobs from 30 to, from that 30 to 0 range, your tank is just going to die eventually. So yeah, I think it's really cool to see them still pull this off, even though the affix combination is this difficult. But I think also part of the reason they're able to do it is
Yeah, I definitely agree. The key level is helping them a lot because of the Raging Fortified combo that is just brutal, and we've seen that combo before in the MDI, where teams definitely had to do smaller pulls and made sure they commit more offensive cooldowns for whenever the mobs are in the Raging range. It looked like that spear, for example, it was thrown really early on. They could have theoretically delayed it to be thrown later, so they are still stunned when they are in Raging range. That is always something that we see some adjustments for on those hierarchy levels. We can see Echo actually dealing with all of those usurpers while fighting Orifrion. So they pulled the left pack into the boss at the very start, and now they're pulling the right pack into the boss as well. These packs are actually also really difficult to deal with on Fortified Raging, just because if you don't have the aggro target in melee range, then they're gonna start hurling spears at random players, and if they're Raging, then that spear is gonna be a huge amount of damage, because it already does a lot without Raging. But they executed it perfectly again, made sure they have their CC, their Windwalker AoE stun safe for when they're in Raging range, and then now was able to move away and to just finish them off. So really well done. It's just almost 12 minutes into the dungeon and they're already on that last platform. So that is actually going to be a really fast time for Spires. Spires, I believe, with the other groups, they had, of course, different affixes and different key levels, but I do believe that the clear times to fastest were around 20 minutes. So Echo being here in this last platform already is actually really impressive.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at that. Obey Alliance last week, who is by far the best Spires team we've had pretty much in any of our competition this season whatsoever. It was a 20 Fortified with Spiteful and Grievous, which are way easier affixes. In their time, with 0 deaths, perfectly clean run was an 1849. And it looks like Echo are on pace to completely crush that. Go at least 2 minutes faster here as long as they stay completely clean here. Now, of course, this pull can be very dangerous, especially, again, Fortified Raging, and they have to worry about those explosives. The Kyrian Spear is already gone, and all 3 of these trash mobs are still at 50% HP, now down to 30% HP. Remember, they do have that Windwalker Monk in the group to Touch of Death, the third add, should they need that extra burst damage at the end, and they almost certainly will with how different their HPs are. They really have to make sure they don't kill Lachesis here, because if that mob dies
really
and the
low.
other 2 mobs don't die, they will heal to full. And that is the worst case scenario, so gotta kill all 3 of these at the same time here, get some burst, and those stacks across the group are going up, and it's just, again, great execution from Echo there. All 3 die at the exact same time. I mean, perfect execution, and now they have 5 minutes to kill the boss to have a faster time than Obey Alliance. Jeez.
Yeah, and 1945, the boss, of course, is going to be pretty... I mean, this boss still takes a decent amount of time just because of the intermission phase where she flies away, and you can't really speed that portion up too much, but otherwise it should still be really quick. They did, of course, they committed their Bloodlust for this Triple Angel pull, so they had the Bloodlust at the start of the dungeon, or for the first boss, and then they committed their second Bloodlust here for that Triple Angel pull, which was really well done. Looked like all of them were delaying their defensives as much as they could to make sure that Sally has an easier time healing them up. So we saw the Cloak, for example, from Fragments being committed once the mobs were only at already at 10% or even lower. And we also saw the Feigned Death being committed by Gingy later as well, to make sure all of those debuffs get reset. And now they're fighting that last boss with the triple Tormentor debuff, because they only dealt with 1 Tormentor at the very start with the first boss. They don't have that fire debuff dot ticking on them, but they do have the 50% slow, the 50% physical damage increase, and also the 50% healing reduction, which can be really scary because this boss does a decent amount of group damage, especially with those magic debuffs that are being applied to the group.
Exactly, and I do want to focus in a little bit on Outcast here. They've actually been playing very well, like much better than we would expect from a team that is seeded as low as they are. They've only had 1 death at all throughout the entire dungeon. And yes, they've been going at a slower pace, but I mean, if you compare the pace that they're going at in this dungeon to what, you know, most live key push groups would be doing on a 19, they are going way faster than that. So they're absolutely having a great showing. And I mean, we've been kind of hard focusing on Echo because, you know, they are Echo after all, but I just want to shout out to Outcast as well. Even with this crazy comp, and even though they are going up against Echo, they're still playing really well.
I definitely agree. Still only this one death on the board, so they're doing an incredibly good job. Excited to see what they can do in the next dungeon as well. Echo, though, they're almost in the last phase here, so LA is struggling a little bit with mana just because there's just so much healing that needs to be done because of that 50% healing reduction, but they should be fine. They're actually dropping incredibly low. They just keep dropping and dropping because LA is just completely He does have Lay on Hands available in case someone needs it, and we also see the defensives like Cloak being committed now to make sure they can finish off the boss, and there it is. 15 minutes 53, Spires of Ascension clear by Echo. What a time.